Hello and welcome to another weekly update. Apologies for the slightly shaky cam nature for this week. The reason for that is I wanted to get outside, partly because it's a lovely day, but also it's a lot quieter outside at the moment than it is inside. But it is still quite early in the morning here, so there's condensation everywhere. So all the seats I was going to sit on are all still really wet, and I can't put the laptop on them or anything like that. So I thought I'd just stand instead, and we'll see kind of how well it goes. Probably also means that I will try and keep this one quite quick as well, so that's probably good news for everyone. Alright, so first thing to talk about this week. I did a blog post about Azure Sphere. So Azure Sphere, if you don't know, it's one of these. It is a microboard. Azure Sphere is more than just the microboard. It's a number of certified boards like this. This one's made by Avnet, but it's also like an OS around it. It's a kind of substrate and a system around it as well for doing secure micro sort of controller workloads. So it comes with automatic updates, security updates. It comes with a really nice over-the-air deployment methodology as well. So I was curious to see, can I use this to interact with Teams? Can I use this, from this board? Can I post information into Teams? Now it turns out that yes, you can, quite simply, because Teams has this nice kind of extensible platform to it. It's actually really easy. So I then wanted to take it one step further, and it's like, well, can I do this in a real use case? So there's a whole blog post and a video you can go and check out. The details are in the show notes. Or you can find them on my blog, which is blog.thoughtstuff.co.uk. But anyway, going through using the temperature sensors on the board, and if the temperature sensor is over a certain threshold, then automatically posting a warning into a Teams channel and also changing that channel name so that it's really obvious that something's wrong. So that was a really fun project to do. The full write-up of that is in that blog post, and that's sort of it's done a bit different, and it shows how extensible Teams can be. Alright, so something else that happened this week, a couple of days ago actually, was the Microsoft Teams community call. So this is a monthly call that happens, developer community call. So monthly call that happens, and there's always somebody like an expert from Microsoft talking about a particular technology or a particular way of doing things that really sort of helps the whole community out in terms of best practice and updates with what's new. And this week it was all talking about app templates. So Eddie was talking all about app templates and how they can be used and what the updates are and what the new things that are coming are, and the reason I'm talking about it mostly here as well is that I did a little bit about Icebreaker. So I did a little segment as part of the community call, really just talking about how you can adjust the schedule for Icebreaker, which is kind of interesting and useful if, like me, you are in a time zone that is not the same time zone as Redmond. So all the samples, which are normally done on Pacific time, actually what you want is them to work on GMT. So there's a really nice, easy way of changing the schedule up there. So I thought it was worth kind of putting into the community call, so glad it went in. So you can watch the whole thing. It's on YouTube if you missed it, and I did a blog post as well because I put the link in as well to a calendar invite. So if you're not on those monthly calls, you absolutely can be. Download the calendar invite and join next month's. They're really good. Alright, so leaning over to my laptop to see what's next. Oh yeah, good one this. So, People Picker. So, there's a thing called a Microsoft Graph Toolkit. If you didn't know this, I would go and have a look because there are some really good UI controls in there. One of them is a People Picker. The reason for bringing it up today is that it's just been updated and it is even better than it was before. So, what is this? If you're writing applications that interact with Graph, then you are probably taking graph data and presenting it to the user. One of the really common things to do if you're doing any kind of creation around Graph is choosing people from your existing organization or whatever existing list of people. So you need some kind of people picker. Trust me, if you try and write a people picker on your own, it is not super easy because it's a multi-select. It's tied to an API, it's multi-select, you want nice display, you want IntelliSense to do that kind of type ahead stuff. It's kind of non-trivial. I'd say this as someone who tried to do this, burned probably a week of time putting something together that I really wasn't very happy with as a proof of concept, because I wasn't aware that the people picker even existed. So I am now aware, a little bit too late for what I needed it for, but it doesn't matter. It's really good anyway. And I'm just looking down here at this blog post. It's gone into public preview, these updates, and it's part of the Graph Toolkit. The whole Graph Toolkit is kind of like a framework of reusable components that if you're building specifically web applications really that interact with Graph, then you'll find these really, really useful. So if you're doing anything like that, if you're writing any kind of apps, if you're writing Teams apps, because they're web apps too, so if you're writing tabs or any other interactions or just web pages and they're interacting with graph data, please go and check out this Graph Toolkit. It will save you a ton of time. Don't be like me, don't try and reinvent the wheel and make a people picker, because it did not end well, trust me. Okay, so what else? Oh yeah, this is cool. So I'm going to leave you with this. So there's a thing called well, let's have a look at this. So back up. So there's an Office 365 developer program. So if you're an Office 365 developer, you can get a developer tenant that you can use for testing. It's a special kind of tenant that you can renew, and it's kind of locked. The idea is you use it for development and testing. It's your sandbox if you like to try stuff out, because then you're not developing straight onto production and you won't hit problems with asking for permissions and all the other things. So the problem with that is that those tenants tend to be empty, and you know what it's like. Actually, you need real data. If you're going to, let's say, implement the people picker that I just spoke about, you need a fully populated list of users to actually know whether that thing's going to work or not. And this has been a challenge for a while. We've had some kind of homebrew solutions. Everybody has their own thing about, you make a bunch of users and it just takes a long time and they're not realistic, and then there's never enough of them. And none of it's great really. So really good to see Microsoft actually kind of solving this problem themselves, which is nice, because they can do that. And that's with something they're calling, I think they're just calling the sample pack. Yeah, the Microsoft Graph sample data packs. So what this is basically test data. So you can preload or load in sample data into your developer tenant. For things like users and mail and events. So there's two different packs. One is a users pack, the other is a mail and events pack. You can load those in. The way you do it is you go to your dashboard. So you go, let's have a look. So as you go into your tenant, your Office 365 tenant, you go to the admin section of your tenant, and then that takes you to the dashboard page. Right down the bottom of the dashboard page, really right down the bottom, there's a section now called sample data packs, and there's two big buttons you can click basically, and it will load in sample data. So this is super useful. Don't spend a lot of time making sample data. If you've got an empty tenant and that's a problem and it's a bit of a pain, load it up with some sample data. It is useful for finding little problems and bugs. It's way better than trying to build it yourself as well. This is a really nice move actually. It's just going to save time, it just makes it easier, takes away some of that setup hassle. So really, really good to see that. All right, I'm going to stop talking in a minute. This has been a fun week, a really fun week actually, because this has been the week that if you've been watching Twitter, lots of people have had their speaker submissions accepted for Ignite. So we're starting to get a feel for who's going to be speaking at Ignite, which is really good. So I haven't collated a list or anything like that because there's kind of no point. The session catalogue will be out soon. It's not out yet, but kind of this is part of the process. So we can look forward to the session catalogue coming out, because then we get to see who's speaking and what they're going to be speaking on, and we can start to think about what the interesting parts of Ignite are going to be. So good to kind of been a good, really kind of uplifting, positive week to see all the people saying, yes, I've got my speaking slot, yes, I've got my speaking slot. So if you got your speaking slot, congratulations. If you didn't, don't worry about it. There's always next year, right? There's a million other speaking opportunities as well. If you're going to Ignite, awesome. If you're not going to Ignite, I did a whole series last year because I didn't go to Ignite last year because babies. Actually, you can still have a really good experience. Ignite is set up for people that are there and not there. So there's tons and tons of content, there's tons of opportunity as well. I'm going to dig in more into that in the coming weeks as we ramp up to Ignite. All right, I'm almost at time. Everything from me. Thanks very much for watching. Sorry about the shaky cam. My hand is getting kind of tired now. Have a great weekend, and I will speak to you again next week.